morning, everyone. What a great privilege to spend this morning with our youth ministers doing such an important job for the kingdom of God. I'm hoping that I will be able to offer you some thoughts for you to take home with you, for you to reflect more on your mission of youth ministry. Of course, the real reason I'm here is that I could not say no to the president of LST, Father Eric Eusebio. No? Takot ko lang. Anyway, the title given to me for the talk is Youth Ministry Planning and Strategy Towards a Fullness of Life for All. I don't know about you, but for me, it sounds like a doctoral dissertation title. No? I'm not sure if we can do justice to it, but I will try my best. No? But before that, a few words. I'm not here to give you a lecture because I will bore you and I will bore myself. I'm here to offer you conversation pieces. No? Little ideas, little phrases that I hope will provoke you into thinking and talking about our work in youth ministry. For this reason, I've designed the entire morning in such a way that you will get to pause, to reflect, and to imagine together. No? My own experience is that every time I go to a conference and there's a long lecture, by the time the lecture ends, I have forgotten already what is being said. No? So I think it's important to do that. Now, as I speak here and offer you those conversation pieces, I invite you to do your part. And your part is to create meaning. And the only way for the ideas that I will introduce here, the only way for them to become meaningful is if you connect them to your context and to your experience. If you don't perform the task of connecting the ideas, the words, the concepts to your experience, no, then the ideas will not be meaningful for you, they will not be relevant. No? Now, the wonderful thing about this room is that there's an accumulation of experiences and wisdom in this room. No? We all come from different places, we have different experiences, no? And we've learned different things from our experiences. I encourage you to draw from all that wealth of experience and wisdom. That way we can all learn together. No? So think of this session as a series of provocations. No? I hope you're not expecting answers, no? Because I hope there will be more questions that will be raised, no? So that we can continue to reflect and be disturbed about this mission of youth ministry. No? We will learn by doing, so I hope you will not be passive. No? We will learn by listening for sure, not only to myself, but also to one another, but also we will learn by sharing. So I will be encouraging you to share with one another, but also maybe if we have time to share in the plenary session. St. Ignatius has this Latin phrase called tantum quantum. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but we Jesuits, whenever we want to impress people, we lapse into Latin. No? So tantum quantum literally means in so far as, or to the extent that. I'd like you to take on this disposition this whole morning. In short, use whatever is useful, forget the rest. No? So please be selective as you go shopping through the different ideas that will be posed during this session. Okay? Is that approach all right? Are we okay with that? Great. Okay, so let's begin. You know, when the pandemic ended, people were talking about the new normal, but we over here began to talk about not the new normal, but the new possible. The pandemic, with all the bad news and tragedies that it brought, also stretched our horizon for what was possible. We did never imagine that we would be able to teach online so effectively, but we all of us, I'm sure, were forced to upskill and pivot to online learning and teaching. No? So we'd like to talk about the new possible, and that's what we want to do this morning. Also, please do not think of the ideas as prescriptions. No? I'm not the expert of your context. You are. No? So we're only going to speculate, especially because we're talking about the future. No? And unless you're a fortune teller or a psychic, we don't really know what the future will hold for us exactly. No? So what I would do is I have sort of drawn from this process called speculative foresight. It's a new way of strategic planning. No? And basically, it invites people to imagine plausible futures, no? By exploring trends and drivers for change, for us to be able to foresee possible scenarios. We're not sure if the scenarios will happen, no? but at least we can foresee them and we can prepare ourselves, no? So we can brace ourselves for those scenarios. No? So the main driver of change, of course, is technology. No? Technology, contrary to our usual perception, is not only an effective tool that can improve our work and our lives. That's what technology does. It improves our work and our lives. Communication, education, social interaction, and so on and so forth. But more than that, technology is also a powerful force that influences and transforms the way we work, the way we live, even the way we think, and the way we believe. That's an important, big idea. No? In case you haven't noticed yet, your life has already changed because of technology, and specifically because of mobile digital technology. No? Because of the internet, because of the smartphone, no? Our lives have changed. The way we work, the way we relate to one another, no? The way we think, and the way we believe. Of course, today we will focus on the way we believe, especially how the youth are affected by mobile digital technology. So remember, technology is not just a tool that you can pick up and use. Technology is a powerful force that makes a difference in our lives for the good or for the bad. So what I'd like to do is examine with you a few resulting trends and unintended consequences of mobile digital technology. What do I mean by this? No? So mobile technology obviously was invented to improve communication, to improve knowledge, and so on and so forth, but there are unintended consequences. No? There are effects that were not foreseen by those who invented and improved mobile digital technology. And these unintended consequences are worthy of reflection, even if they were not intended, because they are just as real. No? These consequences affect our lives, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. And there are trends. No? So, of course, let me just sort of trace the history, which we're all familiar with. I'd like to propose that digital technology is a primary driver of change. So many things have happened, no, since the invention of digital technology. No? We used to take taxis, now we use Grab. No? We used to book rooms in hotel, now we can use Airbnb. We used to crawl all the way to the library to pick up a heavy volume of the encyclopedia. Now we have Wikipedia. No? So digital technology is a primary driver of change. In 1989, that's when it all began. The internet, no, was made available to all of us, to the public. It's always been there for military use. But in 1989, with the invention of the World Wide Web, suddenly all of us have access to it. No? If you haven't been born in 1989, just keep quiet. Don't make the rest of us feel bad. No? Okay. In 2004, Facebook was mainstream. But before Facebook, there was 6 Degrees, which I never heard of, I'm proud to say. Friendster, which I've heard of, in 2002, and MySpace. No? But social media became mainstream in 2004. And I don't know about you, but our lives have not been the same again. And since Facebook, there have been many other social media apps. No? And most recently, in 2022, towards the latter part of 2022, we have generative AI, the public release of ChatGPT. No? And if you're like the educators in the university and schools we've been working with, we're all freaking out. We're all trying to figure out what's going on and what to do. So this recent rise of generative AI is but a continuation of a trajectory, no, that we have found ourselves on these last 35 years. Things have been changing very fast for the last 35 years. And Gemini and ChatGPT are only the latest development. The way digital and mobile technology has been transforming the way we live and work, and the way we think, and for educators, the way we learn, and for youth ministers, the way we believe. A lot of changes. No? So I'm hoping this morning we can sort of provoke ourselves into asking, what are some of these changes? No? The first one, no, is an increasing access to information in general. No? As long as you have some data, you have a connection, and so on and so forth, you can access information, no? Especially with generative AI. No? There will remain a divide between the digital haves and digital have-nots, but this gap is expected to close. No? It's closing. No? There's less and less gap. No? In short, digital technology and all its content will become increasingly available to the wider population. Maybe there are still some areas in our countries, the more remote areas, where digital technology is not as accessible, but that's going to change. In fact, there are stories about young people who are willing not to go hungry as long as they're able to have load. No? Because this is becoming increasingly important to young people. No? Again, I'm proposing to you an idea, an observation. Your job is to connect it to your context, to your experience, to the people that you're working for, the youth that you're ministering to. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to this diagram. Now, this diagram kind of summarizes the history of education in just a few seconds. No? So how can we sort of categorize the different stages of education? We can categorize them according to A, access to information. So the y-axis, you have high access to information at the top and low access to information at the bottom. No? And then the other category is whether there's quality control, high quality control on the right and low quality control on the left. So let's have a little exercise to wake you up. I'm going to talk about the stage of education. You will shout out from where you are if it's A, B, C, or D. So A is high access to information, but low quality control. A lot of people can access information, but who knows what. No? Letter B is low access to information and low quality control. Letter C is low access to information, but high quality control. And letter D is high in both access to information and quality control. Do you need a minute to figure that out? Okay, let's go with the first one. The first stage of education is oral tradition. The elder in the village will tell stories and drop knowledge and share whatever he or she knows. Which quadrant does that belong to? A, B, C, or D? Louder. Okay, it's actually B. No? B. Because only those who can listen around the campfire can access the information, and who knows what the elders is saying, right? No quality control. There's no external control. The next stage is the printing press. No? Printing press, no? And the libraries, the rise of books and libraries. Which quadrant will it be? Is it A, C, or D? Okay, the right answer is C. No? C, because access to information is certainly higher than oral tradition, but it's still low because books were expensive and not everybody could go to the library. However, quality control has improved because before you can print a book, unlike today, where any Tom, Dick, and Harry or Jill can print a book, no? Because of the technology. In those days, printing a book cost a lot of money, and therefore there was a lot of proofreading, a lot of editing, a lot of selection that goes on. So low access to information, high quality control. Let's go to our present age. Our present age is the age of the internet. Is it letter A or letter D? I think we're all agreed there. It's letter A, no? Because thank God now we have greater access to information, but God have mercy on us because there is no quality control. All you have to do is look at the comment section of any online website or app, no? And you will want to slash your wrists because you will hear all sorts of opinions, all sorts of ideas that have not gone through quality control. No? Of course, the ideal is letter D. Will we get there? Please do not hold your breath. Okay. So, aside from the fact that right now we are in a very dangerous age because the combination of high access to information and low quality control is particularly deadly. Why is it deadly? Because everyone thinks he or she knows everything. No? Just because you can Google or you can do ChatGPT, you think it's the correct answer already. It's a dangerous combination. No? Coupled with that, there's another trend that's going on. According to Nicholas Carr, who wrote the book The Shallows, one of my favorite books about the internet, even if it's already older, and the subtitle is What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. He noticed, based on studies, that if you're using a tablet or your phone or a computer screen, if you are reading, it is difficult to engage in careful reading and thinking. You tend to skim. Unless you make a conscious extra effort to slow down and say, I'm going to make sure I understand what I'm reading, you're going to skim. I have a personal experience of that. We read our prayers, the daily prayers for the church, and I could never figure out the book. It's so hard to find the right pages. So I got an app called Universalis where all the prayers are already there in proper sequence, so I don't have to make a mistake or repeat the prayer. But one thing I noticed is that while it's more efficient, if I'm not careful, I finish the prayer and don't know what I've been through. The tendency is to skim. And part of that is that we live in a distraction environment. Gloria Mark wrote a book called Attention Span, where the subtitle is Finding Focus and Fighting Distraction. It's a big problem, not only for young people, but also for ourselves. According to Dr. Mark, there's a need to exert, listen to this, a constant effort to hold a single train of thought. Just to hold a single train of thought, it requires a constant effort. It's like defying gravity. If you just let gravity do its work, you're going to be distracted. That's what she's saying now. She did a study where what she did was she studied the average number of seconds a person is able to stay on a screen until moving on to the next screen. We always have a lot of windows open, right? How long do you think you're able to stay in one screen without moving to another? And she found out that in 2004, the average was 150 seconds. In 2012, 75 seconds. In 2023, 40 seconds. I am afraid to extrapolate. But I want you to ask yourself, do you notice this in yourself? No? Yeah, all of us have become ADHD. And it's not our fault, it's not because of our genes, it's because of our digital environment. Especially if you're a regular user of social media like myself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't use social media. There are many benefits, many uses, not to mention mental health, because once I left my phone in the house and I was freaking out the whole day. So I'm so connected to my phone. But it's just important for us to be mindful. Now, according to Dr. Mark as well, this talk about multitasking is a myth. According to her, each time we switch tasks, it's like erasing everything on our whiteboard. Can you imagine that? Your whiteboard is filled with ideas, and then you switch to Facebook just for a few minutes. When you come back, the whole whiteboard has been erased. Can you imagine the amount of effort and time it requires to reconstruct what was in the whiteboard? That's how much cognitive energy is required when we're multitasking. Which reminds me, I'm not against multitasking. Many of us have mastered the art of multitasking. This morning, I went to the toilet, and I noticed the person standing beside me was multitasking. He was doing his thing, but also he was texting at the same time. I hope nobody shook his hand afterwards, but anyway. So the internet, the internet brings a lot of benefit, a plus in productivity. We are so much more productive because of the internet. But our focus has been diminished. There's been a leap in information, a leap in communication and collaboration, but the unintended consequences include the following: a constant shift of focus, which we all experience, less attention spans, and even more alarmingly, greater polarization. Because of the way algorithms work and so on and so forth, people are now able to collaborate less. We don't want to talk politics here, but in the US, in the Philippines, we all know what I'm talking about. Family members and friends have stopped talking because they could not come to any agreement. Okay? So the result is cognitive fracture. Now remember what I said. Digital technology is a powerful force, and all of us are subject to it. These are tendencies. No? It doesn't mean it's happening already equally with everyone. It's a tendency. No? It's like gravity. It tries to pull you down. But you can do things to defy gravity. No? You can do things to be more mindful, to be more disciplined. No? So it's just important for us to be aware of that. Okay? This is very interesting. According to Nicholas Carr, there's a reverse evolution. No? Because what's evolution? Remember, we used to be hunters and gatherers of food. No? We weren't settling down. And then when agriculture was invented, we began to cultivate food. No? We began to grow plants and cultivate food. No? According to Nicholas Carr, there's a reverse process going on as far as knowledge is concerned. We used to be cultivators of personal knowledge. We used to nourish and nurture our knowledge. We would have some ideas we're not sure. We'll think about it. We'll water it a little bit. We'll take care of it until hopefully one day it will bear fruit. We used to do that. But today, with a copy-paste culture, many of us tend to become mere hunters and gatherers of information in the digital forest. Again, this is true of students, of young people, but also true of adults like ourselves. Okay? So, many unintended consequences: information overload, fake news, addiction, doom scrolling. Do you know what doom scrolling is? It's when you look at TikTok and you just keep scrolling. No? I've been a victim of that. No? I thought I would be more disciplined, but no. So I've deleted my TikTok account. No? Shortened attention spans, the influencer culture, cult factories, QAnon, sexualization of kids, bots, deepfakes, polarization. Ang dami. A lot of unintended negative consequences. Again, am I saying let's ban social media and internet? No. But let's be more reflective. Let's be more mindful. You who are youth ministers, it's very important for you to understand this, because the people you're serving are very much immersed in this world, and they may not have the reflective capacity that they need for them to be able to examine their habits. No? Although I have to say, even youth ministers and educators like myself, sometimes we lack that reflective capacity as well. No? So the second trend is the devaluation of truth and truth-finding. It's no longer valuable today. No? Truth is no longer as valuable as it used to be. Truth-finding is no longer valuable today. Now, I think we should panic. No? Educators and evangelizers and youth ministers, we are in the business of truth. No? We want our students to learn the truth. You want the young people you're serving to believe in the truth. No? So with this trend of devaluing truth and truth-finding, we have a problem. No? It is unlikely that digital content will be regulated. No? Because what's driving digital platforms is economics, no? Profit. No? So for digitally accessed information, quality control will remain minimal or nil. No? There will be no quality control. This absence of quality control, coupled with a tendency towards superficial and distracted thinking bred by the internet, will continue to diminish the importance of truth and critical thinking. Okay, I'd like to stop here because I need a drink, but I'd like you to talk to your seatmates for a minute or two and just talk about the two trends I've mentioned so far. I'm going to mention four, but the two for now are greater access to information, digital information, and secondly, the evaluation of truth. Is it true in your experience? Do you see this among your students, among the young people you're ministering to? Are you seeing it in yourselves, in your colleagues, in your community? 2 minutes. Okay, there'll be more time for conversation later, so I'm going to just interrupt your sharing now, just to get you warmed up, right? Okay. We've been talking about information, truth. Let's now segue to something that's more immediate to you as far as you're concerned, as youth ministers is concerned. No? So here's a survey in the US, no? Not in the Philippines. But I'd like you to guess what you think, no? Is the case for the Philippines. So this was a survey about religions. No? It's called Religious Particularity and Individualism among U.S. teens, no? From 13 to 17 years old. The first question is about the beliefs about the truth of religions. So 29% believe any religion. No? 29% believe only one religion is true. 60% believe many religions may be true. 9% believe there is very little truth in religions, and 2% don't know and refuse. That's total U.S. Let's look at the Roman Catholics in the U.S. No? Roman Catholic, only one religion is true, 19%. It's lower than the national average. No? Many religions may be true, 71%, higher than the national average. Basically the same for there's very little truth in religions and don't know, refuse. What do you think about the Philippines or your country, wherever you are? No? Would you say, how would you fare? How would the young people fare in the first two? No? We're speculating, we're imagining. No? Let's go to the second item. The second item is beliefs about religious particularity. People should practice only one faith. About half of the teenagers in the U.S. said yes. No? Also half, it's okay to practice religions beside one's own. Don't know, refuse, 3%. Let's compare the national average with the Roman Catholics. More or less the same, 40% people should practice only one faith. A little bit more, it's okay to practice religions besides one's own. Maybe this has something to do with interreligious dialogue, I don't know. No? And about the same for don't know and refuse. No? Let's go to the third item. Is it okay to pick and choose? This is very important, I think. Is it okay to pick and choose religious beliefs without accepting everything? In short, is it okay to go shopping? No? To be a cafeteria Catholic, for example. No? 46% U.S. national average agree, 52% disagree, don't know, refuse, 2%. Let me ask you, do you think there are more Catholics who agree that it's okay to go shopping in their religion in the U.S.? How many people say higher? How many people say lower? And the others, you don't say. No? Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, we'll find out. 71%. 71%. So Catholics are more open-minded. No? We can pick and choose. No? We can ignore the church teachings we don't like to follow, and we'll only pick out the ones that we like. Cafeteria Catholic. No? Do you think this is true in your country? You may want to think about that as well. So these are just ideas, no, for us to think about our work. Finally, no, for believers to be truly religious and spiritual, they need to be involved in a religious congregation. By this we mean a community or a church. No? So agree 1/3, 2/3 disagree. What do you think about Catholics? Higher will agree or lower? Okay, about the same. Okay? So this brings us to a phenomenon that's very interesting. We have yet to see it maybe in Asia. I don't know. No? Again, it's up to you. The rise of the nuns. No? Not the mothers, not the nuns, okay? But those with no religious affiliation. No? So they can even claim to be spiritual, but when you ask them to take a box, they'll say no religion. Some of them can even confess to being atheists. I don't believe in God, but I'm spiritual, whatever that means. Yeah? And the other one is what we call the SBNRs. Have you heard of the SBNRs? The spiritual but not religious. No? In short, they have a religious affiliation, but they do not practice. I think we have a lot of these. No? For example, Catholics who don't go to Mass, but they're spiritual and they're Catholic. Okay? So, again, this is a big shift from what used to happen before. No? Before we had the religiously devout. No? That's why the third trend is the shift from organized religion to spiritual irreligiosity. No? You're not religious, but you're spiritual. No? Again, this is not, we're not claiming this is already happening. It's a tendency. No? It's already a trend in the West. Is it going to happen in our respective countries? I don't know, no? But if we think it will, we should brace for it. We should be ready. We should not be caught off guard. No? Woodhead, an author of the book called Spiritual Revolution, did an intensive study of belief in a British town, and she found out there was a decrease of the religiously devout and the rise of the so-called spiritual seekers, no? Who are self-guided spiritual practitioners who aim to foster their sense of who they are. Have you heard of spiritual seekers? Have you heard of people having that kind of disposition? They're guiding themselves. They don't want institutional religion. They don't want to bother with organized religion. They just want to guide themselves. Maybe they'll do mindfulness exercise. Maybe they'll go vegetarian. Maybe they'll do a little yoga. No? Maybe they'll just be kind to other people, and so on and so forth. Again, we're not saying that's wrong. We're just saying that that's a big change. No? Now, my question to you is this. Given the youth that you are ministering to, are you beginning to see a little bit of this? Are you foreseeing this as something that's going to happen? No? Again, if you're going to come up with strategies and plans for your youth ministry, it's important to take these things into account. No? We cannot be naive and say, it's business as usual. We're just going to do the usual things. No? No. If things are changing, if the young people that we are ministering to are changing, I think you had a session about Gen Zers. No? It's important to understand them, to know what strategy might work for them. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about generative AI. No? I don't know if all of us know generative AI. I'm not an expert, but here's one way I would summarize it. No? Generative AI is a technology that's much more superior than Google and all that. No? Because it learns patterns from the information fed to it. So if you feed the machine text, images, and audio, it's going to learn the pattern. No? It's going to learn the pattern. The wonderful thing is that it can create content using language that resembles it. How many of you have tried ChatGPT, Bard, or Gemini? Please raise your hand. I'm glad to see that because it's important for us to experiment and learn, no? And see how we can use it properly, right? But isn't it amazing how ChatGPT can whip up a homily in less than a minute? Isn't it amazing that ChatGPT can design a formation program in less than a minute? No? So productivity can really go up because of generative AI. The problem, though, is that generative AI is guilty of what they call hallucination. It makes up things, although the technology is developing so fast that they're saying that maybe that will go away. But for now, not everything that ChatGPT spews out is reliable now. But here's what's interesting. ChatGPT mimics human language. It does not mimic human thought, at least as far as we know. You know? So it sounds like us, but we're not sure if it understands or it thinks. Well, that reminds me, that sounds like our students, right? They sound like us when we're asking them, but we're not sure if they are thinking. No? Anyway, so here's another reverse evolution. No? From the apes, no, we evolved into human, Homo sapiens. No? But we used to define ourselves by reiterating our intelligence to distinguish ourselves from beasts, right? But with computers, and especially with generative AI, there's a shift to that. Now we define humanity in a different way. Now we distinguish ourselves from AI and seek metaphysical shelter by emphasizing our kinship to animals. We can experience, we can sense, computers can't, no? At least as far as today is concerned. That might change. No? So from an emphasis on sapience, we are now emphasizing sentience. So a big overarching question for all of us here, what does it mean to be human today? The answer may not be the same as 10 years ago. It's not just about intelligence. What does it mean to be human today? If we're talking about fullness of life for all, if we're talking about human flourishing, that means we want our youth to develop into full humanity. But what does it mean to be human today? It's a very interesting question, which mercifully we're not going to go into today. Now, one implication of this is, what do we teach and preach? What do we relate to our youth when we're doing youth ministry? I hope it's not content. This used to be our default. When we're teaching, when we're preaching, it's all about the content, what the Bible says, what Scripture says, etc., etc. Well, I'm sorry, but we're going to go out of fashion. No longer relevant in the age of AI, teaching and preaching cannot primarily be supplying content. Why? Because they can Google it and they can ChatGPT it. And ChatGPT will do a better job of supplying content than you. It'll sound nicer, it'll be faster. Learning and believing cannot primarily be knowing content. Don't just make them recite the Apostles' Creed, because they can just copy-paste from Google. So we have to re-examine what it means to teach, to preach, to minister to the youth. We have to examine what it means for the young people to learn, to believe, and to basically follow what we want them to do, not what the church teaches. How many of you have seen the first Matrix? Again, this will date me, but yes, Matrix. So some of you may have caught the last installation. It's about Neo, but there's this thing called the Matrix theory of knowledge. Let me explain that. What's that? Remember, when Neo wanted to learn Kung Fu, what did he do? Did he practice? No. He just downloaded. He downloaded Kung Fu. So you can download knowledge and skills as fast and as efficiently as you can. So maximum productivity, but minimum user effort. Does it sound familiar? This is what we want. Because our workload is so heavy, because there's so many deadlines, because we're imposing so much work on one another, including our students and young people, and when we're not working, we're in our devices, entertaining ourselves. We want to be very productive, but we want to exert the least possible effort. We want to subscribe to the matrix theory of knowledge. The problem is it doesn't work. Because today, we have to shift from product to process. Product refers to knowledge, doctrine, and church teachings. We don't want our young people to just download and memorize the product, because that's so accessible on Google and ChatGPT. What we want them to do is experience the process of thinking, learning, knowing, and believing, and if I may add here, questioning. The process of thinking, learning, knowing, believing, and questioning is more than ever precious, because today content is cheap. It's all over the place. Process is precious. So my dear friends, if the way you're doing your work is you're still supplying content to your students or to the youth that you're ministering to, that's a little bit cheap, I have to say. But if what you're doing is you're giving them the opportunity to go through the process of thinking, learning, knowing, and believing, whatever that means, and we'll spend some time this morning doing that, that is precious, because they don't get that outside. They don't get that outside. Okay? So, from preaching to designing the search, the young people are spiritual seekers. How do you design the search so that the search is guided and scaffolded by you? They're not searching outside on their own and getting lost in the process. Your youth ministry programs are giving them are designed in such a way that the search that these young people are engaged in, whether you like it or not, is guided and scaffolded. So, instead of supplying content, to move to enabling the process. I'm going to stop here, give you 2 minutes to talk to your seatmates. Anything that struck you, questions, just share with one another. Okay, just process check. Can you just raise your hand? Is this making sense to you? Is it relevant? Okay, thank you. Let's move on. We have now the fourth trend. No? Okay, another survey by Barna, a group that's doing all these religious surveys. Is religion harmful? Is religion mostly harmful? You will see that, look at the column on agree. No? All adults, 1/4, say that all religion is mostly harmful. This is in the US again. No? And then almost half of those who are spiritual but not religious, no, say that religion is mostly harmful. And then practicing Christians, as expected, only 15%. Evangelicals even less so, because as we know, evangelicals are always by default more zealous than Catholics, right? So anyway, so just take note of that, no? That half of spiritual seekers, those who are spiritual but not religious, believe that religion is mostly harmful. Which brings me to the fourth trend, which I think is very impactful for our work, no? And that is an erosion of trust in authority and institutions in general, but especially and including religious institutions and the church. People don't trust the church as it used to. This is already evident today. This phenomenon is partly due to the increased access to information. Before, there was only one authority, the church. They had to believe everything the church said. Now there are many sources of information. I can check what the priest said. Oh, the pastor said this, but when I Googled it, that's not what it says. Also, he copied the homily, so I can, so there's no trust, right? But also for us in the Catholic Church, an additional factor for the Catholic Church would be the sex abuse scandals, because especially the way media would play it. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is wrong, but also media has a way of dramatizing, not so much exaggerating, but playing it up all the time, which doesn't help in terms of the credibility or trustworthiness of the church. So here you have four trends. Now, I put here a Mentimeter, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do is, I just want you to discuss with your seatmates, among these trends, which in your opinion poses the most serious but actionable challenge to your youth ministry work. So there's no correct answer. I want your opinion. Number one, increasing access to information, especially generative AI. Number two, devaluation of truth and truth finding. Number three, shift from organized religion to none and spiritual but not religious. And number four, erosion of trust in religious authority and institutions. Please talk to your seatmate. Choose one number. Do not say all of the above, okay? All of them are real, but which one poses the most serious but actionable? Meron kang pwedeng gawin. You can do something about it to your youth ministry work. Okay? So please talk to your seatmates and choose a number. Okay, have you chosen a number? Okay, I'm going to ask you to stand up and look around the room if you've chosen a number. Are you going to cooperate? Okay, so how many of you chose number one? Please stand. One. One, number one. Okay, look around. Okay, okay. There's no right or wrong answer. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for standing. By the way, I need a little favor. please watch your seatmate. If your seatmate does not stand at all, please send the seatmate out of the room, okay? Okay. You have to cooperate. I'm not the only one doing the work here, okay? Number 2, how many people chose number 2? Please stand. The evaluation of truth, wow, dami. And truth finding. Please look around. Also upstairs, we have a lot of people, so let's give them a big hand. Thank you. Number 3, shift from organized religion to non and spiritually but not religious. Please stand. Okay. Okay, let's give them a big hand. Thank you. And finally, erosion of trust in religious authority and institutions. Please stand. Okay, thank you. Okay. From where I'm standing, I would say it's a toss-up among 2, 3, and 4. No? And there's no right answer. Now, those who did not stand, please stand now and leave the hall. Leave the hall. I'm just kidding. Okay. So, as you're strategizing, planning, and I hope innovating and imagining your youth ministry efforts, take into consideration the threats. Okay? By the way, the slides will be made available afterwards. No? We'll give you the link, so you can refer to them. No? Okay. Now, let me quote from Christus Vivit, no? Pope Francis in 2019 about youth ministry today. And I've emphasized on my own some portions. Although many young people are happy to see a church that is humble yet confident in her gifts and capable of offering fair fraternal criticism, others want a church that listens more, that does more than simply condemn the world. Okay? To be credible to young people, there are times when she needs to regain her humility and simply listen. In short, synodality. No? Recognizing that what others have to say can provide some light to help her better understand the gospel. What is awesome about this quotation is what Pope Francis is reminding us about, that others can provide some light to help the church understand the gospel. Others, no, others aside from the bishops. A word for that is sensus fidei. Everyone has the sense of faith, or sensus fidei. We can help one another understand the gospel better. Now, in the same document, Pope Francis talks about 3 main features of the envisioned youth ministry program that he's dreaming of. First, it should be inclusive. Second, it should be popular. And third, it should be synodal. No? Inclusive, he means it should have room for all those who have other visions of life, who belong to other religions, or who distance themselves from religion altogether. Okay? So think about your youth ministry. Is it inclusive? No? Do you include non-Catholics and non-Christians? Not that you have to, but if people want to join you, are you open? No? Are you open to those who are spiritual but not religious? Those who don't go to Mass? No? You have to be inclusive. Has to be popular, against a pure and perfect youth ministry marked by abstract ideas. If we're like that, we end up completely removed from the world of young people and suited only to an elite Christian youth that sees itself as different or special. In short, are you preaching to the choir? Are you evangelizing the converted already? No? That's not popular with the rest of the world. No? That's only a minority, unfortunately. Finally, it should be synodal. It should be moving towards a participatory and co-responsible church, one capable of appreciating its own rich variety, gratefully accepting the contributions of the lay faithful, including young people and women, consecrated persons, as well as groups, associations, and movements. But you know, for a youth ministry to be inclusive, popular, and synodal, it has to acknowledge the sensus fidei of the people. No? So let's think about a little bit before the break, what kind of spirituality does synodality entail? Because it does entail a special kind of spirituality. How can we form synodal Catholics? We want our Catholics to be synodal. No? What kind of spirituality do we need to promote? No? So, just a reminder, I'm sure all of this we know already, synodality is a style. According to Pope Francis, it is a walking together. It is what the Lord expects from the church of the third millennium. A very strong statement. Christ expects synodality of our church. Okay? It should be a listening church. So it's a way of being a church that listens to the Spirit of the Lord, speaking not directly to us, but through the other people of God. You know? That's why sensus fidei is important. You have to believe that everyone has the sensus fidei. You know? Now, and in Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis says, by virtue of the sensus fidei, every Christian, regardless of position in the church or level of instruction in the faith, is an active member of the church. It's a very subversive statement. It means not only the bishop, not only the theologians, not only the preachers, no? Not only the ordained or the religious sisters and brothers, but everyone. Okay? So what is sensus fidei? Let's talk a little bit about sensus fidei. Sensus fidei literally means a sense of the faith. All of us have a sense of the faith. It's actually an ancient teaching of the church. No? Vatican II mentions it, no, in the dogmatic constitution of the church, but did not develop it. For reasons we can understand. The church was afraid people might abuse the term. But in 2018, under Pope Francis, the International Theological Commission came up with an amazing document, a radical document called Sensus Fidei in the Life and Mission of the Church. I suggest you look it up. It's amazing. But here is a summary. No? So, Sensus Fidei, other ways of defining it, it's a sense of the faith. We all have a sense what the faith is. No? We have an instinct of the faith. We have a connaturality, no, with what is true. It's a spiritual perception, a sense of discernment. No? Those are not very helpful, so I'm going to try to unpack them. No? So basically, the sensus fidei allows us to become creative and critical believers. So question, what is a creative believer? What is a critical believer? No? A creative and critical believer has the capacity to interpret revelation. Did you ever think of yourself as having that capacity? Did you ever think of the youth that you're serving as having that capacity to interpret revelation and to discern the authority or truthfulness of this interpretation? So when you interpret, it's creative. When you discern, it's critical. No? So the creative work of interpreting revelation, it's a sense for the faith. No? So basically the question you're trying to answer is, what could this faith mean for us today? No? Scripture cannot answer that. Church teachings cannot answer that. It's our lives, the context of our lives that can answer that can tell us the meaning of a particular gospel passage or the church teaching. The significance, the value, the implications. No? It's our lives. That's why it's the sensus fidei. Lay people and also the consecrated, both, no? Bishop or not, everyone can interpret revelation. No? Okay. But at the same time, the creative work should be balanced by the critical work of evaluating, because not all interpretations are equal. Some are better than others. Others are outright wrong. No? So it's a sense of the faith. No? So which of the different interpretations is the most valid given our faith? So for example, you're discussing a gospel passage. There's a group of 5. You're saying, oh, for me this means this, for me it means that. No? But you have a right and you have the capacity to say, your interpretation sounds a little bit wrong, no? Based on what we're talking about. No? Maybe it's not. So not all interpretations are equal. No? So we have to also evaluate interpretations. No? So according to the sensus fidei, and this is an ancient teaching of the church, there are 3 teaching authorities in the church. The first is the most obvious one, the one that has been emphasized all these centuries, the magisterium, the official authority, the college of bishops headed by the Holy Father. But that's only one. The second one would be the theologians. No? We have theologians here. You are the second teaching authority of the church. scholarly authority. But the third one, the least emphasized, is the sensus fidelium, the authority from the lived faith. Now, the three are connected. You cannot divorce one from the other. I cannot say, in my life, this is my interpretation. I don't care what the theologians say. I don't care what the bishops say. We can't do that. No? The beauty of sensus fidei is that the three should be reciprocal. They should be affecting one another. And the magisterium is the one that regulates. They're the ones that officially says, ito okay, yan hindi pwede. No? So there is a safety net. No? So, okay. So the three should be affecting one another, but the magisterium is the regulating body. No? Okay, now this is very important. Our personal sensus fidei, our personal sense of the faith, ought to be rooted in the church's sense of the faith. So you have our personal sense of the faith, there's also the ecclesial sense of the faith. So the foundation is the ecclesial. You cannot be separate, no? So that's revelation. But at the same time, the ecclesial sense for the faith should now be rooted in the faithful's personal sense for the faith. There is a two-way relationship. I don't know if you know the history of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception and the dogma of the Assumption. No? What happened? The Holy Father uncharacteristically consulted the lay people before he pronounced that the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption are dogmas of the Church. That is very remarkable because we have very few dogmas. In fact, the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption are the only modern-day dogmas I can recall. Am I correct? Theologians? Yes. No. But imagine, the two dogmas in modern times were formulated as a result of a consultation of sensus fidei. What's another word for a consultation of the sensus fidei? Synodality. No? So it's not new, really. It's not new. No? So the process of interpreting Revelation should involve also our personal sense of the faith. No? Okay? So I'd just like to end before we, I'd like to wrap up with a few slides. No? According to Christus Vivit, no, the church can be compared to a canoe. No? You have the elderly helping to keep the canoe on course by judging the position of the stars, while the young keep rowing, no, like slaves. They're rowing, imagining what's ahead, what waits for them ahead. And according to the Holy Father, let us steer clear of young people who think that adults represent a meaningless past, and those adults who always think they know how young people should act. Okay, examine your own context now. Are you working with young people who think that adults represent a meaningless past? Are you an adult who always think you know how young people should act? Those are the two things we're supposed to avoid. Okay? So comments and questions so far. We have a few minutes for that before we take a break at 10:15. So I'm now opening the floor for comments or questions. But first, can you chat with your seatmate about what you've heard so far, what struck you, what you didn't understand, no? And maybe we can ask for some clarification. Okay? So please chat with your seatmate first. I'll give you a couple of minutes for that. While you're chatting, I'd like to emphasize 2 points. No? First, the sensus fidei is a gift of the Holy Spirit to the entire church, not just the ordained, but all the baptized, from the bishop to the last of the faithful. Okay? So my question to you is this: how do you feel about your personal sense for the faith? The gift of sensus fidei that you received in baptism. Are you confident? Are you uncertain? If you had to choose from 1 to 4, 1 being completely uncertain and 4 being completely confident, where would you put yourself? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Number 1, raise your hand. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Okay. Okay, so it's just good to know where you are, no? Okay. Next, the second point. It's a gift of the Holy Spirit to the entire church, not just to the Catholics, but all the baptized, to all who belong to any Christian tradition. Okay? Okay, so the question here is not just the ordained, not just the Catholics, how do you feel about this doctrine? Okay, so chat with your seatmate. Okay, 2 minutes for questions or comments. If you have a burning question or comment, it may not be your own, it may be somebody else's. You can blame your seatmate. Please come forward. We have microphones in the house. Come forward and identify yourself, your affiliation, and ask your question. I'm a little concerned because I sort of rushed through the sensus fidei, because we're running out of time. So I may need to clarify something. Yes, please.
Hello, good morning. Happy Easter to all. So I suppose I was stuck with the fourth one, the stumbling block about it's there, the growing distrust. And I thought earlier you mentioned about, by the way, lead you is my name. So I was struck with what you mentioned also, there's that abuses also. Since day one, there's that youth ministry. Now we are in the youth ministry planning strategy.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? Sorry.
So my question is that we speak of the planning and strategy, but at the same time, there's that factor also of safeguarding need.
Safeguarding need.
So how do I say this? So there's abuses in the church, and then it is perceived there as affecting also the distrust to the authority as part of the four you mentioned. And I suppose my question is that, can we actually talk about the youth ministry planning without even providing the safeguarding, you know what I mean? The safeguarding, there's that Pontifical Commission on Protecting of Minors. So that's where I'm coming from. So is it possible to talk about youth ministry planning strategy towards fullness of life without even being able to tackle that difficult conversation?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very important concern. As we know, safeguarding of minors is a very important issue precisely because we are suffering the consequences of not doing that. No? So I'd like to say, yes, that's important. It's foundational. It's fundamental. However, this conference is not dedicated to that. No? We are assuming that that's in place. No? So I'm sorry, but my talk does not include that. No? But I think I'd like to reiterate and agree with you that safeguarding of minors is a given. It should be a given. Okay? Yes.
Hi, good morning po. I am a senior high school student from the Ateneo de Manila University. And I'm representing the Youth Christian Life Community Organization. A while ago po, you mentioned that there are three teaching authorities: the magisterium, the theologians, and the lay faithful. I was wondering lang po kanina, now what if the teachings of these authorities parang nagka-clash po? And I thought about the context of the LGBTQ plus situation, kasi there are teaching authorities who disagree, and there are also those who agree in this situation. And to think that Pope Francis also released letters about this, and there are Catholic countries who are willing to reject his letters because they strongly believe against the LGBTQ community. And I was just wondering po, how can you give light to this situation?
Thank you. That's a very relevant question. No? I cannot answer it comprehensively, but what I'd like to say is that, first of all, this whole question of gender identity is still in flux. It's still being debated, not only in religion, but also in science. No? So the jury is still out there. It's not clear yet. No? And we have to be open and find out what science tells us and what the reflections and the guidance of our church will give us also. So I just want to put that before anything else. Secondly, when there are disagreements, not just about LGBTQ, but in general, thankfully, in the Catholic Church, we have a safety net. No? We may not like it, but it's the magisterium. The magisterium is the regulating function, has a regulating function. It's the one that says finally that this is true and this is false. Otherwise, there will be chaos. No? A lot of the objections against synodality is about that. People were worried about chaos, confusion, but it's very clear that the College of Bishops is the final arbiter of what is accepted. No? So, on the one hand, the question of LGBTQ, gender identity especially, is still in flux. I'm talking about gender identity, not sexual orientation, because sexual orientation, there's already a consensus in the scientific community. But gender identity is still in flux. No? So there's a lot of debate about that. But at the end of the day, eventually, when we have more information and reflection, we will have to accept what the magisterium says. Okay. I hope that answers your question. One final question before we break.
Good morning po, Father. I'm DM from Manila School. In the coming days, AI will be really part of our lives, especially to our young people. Today, we have discovered that we educators and evangelizers are also into it. However, you also presented its danger and disadvantages. In the context of formal education, what is your recommendation for the Catholic school communities, specifically teachers, administrators, and policymakers, when it comes to the use of AI for both teachers and students po?
Okay, very quickly. First of all, I cannot prescribe per school because every school is different, but maybe one phrase might be helpful. We are encouraging educators to assume a disposition of measured enthusiasm towards generative AI. We have to be enthusiastic because it's new, there are many benefits, but our enthusiasm must be measured. So for those of you who are in formal education, it's very important that you formulate AI use policies. You have to be clear what you are allowing, what you're not allowing. But the disposition we're recommending is one of measured enthusiasm, to be open, but to watch out for the risks and the unintended consequences. Okay? So on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll come back at 10:35. Thank you. I know I'm not supposed to drink, but I'm the speaker, so I suppose they'll excuse me. Let's begin with some questions, maybe comments, while we're waiting for the others. Feel free to come forward to the microphone. You'll have to speak a little bit more deliberately and slowly because it's hard for me to understand sometimes. Yes, go ahead,
Hi,
please.
Father. I'm Val from Ateneo de Naga. My question was, earlier, when you presented the triangle, we said that eventually disagreements in terms of sensus fidelium would have to be addressed, but the final say is with the magisterium. But the fourth trend among the young, the fourth trend that you discussed earlier was the distrust in religious authority. So how do we convince our young people that the official authority, the sensus magisteriii, how do we reconcile that? If there's a distrust with authority, how do we convince our young lay faithful to follow, I think, what the magisterium is saying? So I think that's where the conflict comes in,
Right, yeah.
for the concern for the LGBT, women, etc.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. No? So, first of all, I want to say that as we mentioned before the break, the magisterium has the regulating function, no? So that it won't be chaotic in the church. Otherwise, it's going to be chaotic, no? But you bring up a very important concern, which is if the magisterium or the hierarchical church is already suffering a perception of untrustworthiness, how do we convince young people, no, to accept what the official church teachings are? Am I correct? Yes. So that's a great question. No? I'm hoping that our youth ministry can guide our youth in such a way that they don't just make decisions about who to believe in a knee-jerk reaction. Because many of us tend to do that, including adults. No? For example, we've already put people in a box, you know, and say, that's not trustworthy, that's not credible, so I won't listen anymore, period. No? But we're hoping that precisely through the sensus fidei, they will be able to evaluate what the church is saying and judge it on the merit of the claim, not so much the image of the church. No? So in many ways, the work of the youth ministers is so much more challenging now because you also have to build up the credibility of the church. No? But that's part of the reality. No? So I'd like to acknowledge that it's more difficult, but at the same time, the direction really is to not be reactive just because there was this, you know, our track record obviously is very bad when it comes to, you know, sexual abuse and all that. So, especially in the West. No? So, it's important to acknowledge that, but at the same time to challenge the young people that let's not just react because of that, because that's not the way critical thinking happens. I hope that's helpful. No? Maybe one more question before we move on. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will move on. Let me just look for the... okay, one more. Yes, go ahead, yes.
Morning po, Father. My question would be, you mentioned a while ago in your slide that I assume that as youth ministers, we should help our young people in discerning and interpreting, you know, their sensu fidelium. But as youth ministers who have also our own personal interpretations and possible misaligned as well, how should we orient ourselves as ministers to properly guide them in those aspects, considering our own personal biases, prejudice? So yun po.
Yeah, again, a very valid question, a very down-to-earth question. No? Like every youth minister will have his or her own biases or inclinations as well. A lot of it depends on, I think, two things. The first is our honest openness. No? When we think we know everything, I think we're in danger. No? There should all of us need a healthy dose of self-doubt. That there's a possibility we may be wrong. I think the moment we forget that, we're in trouble. No? So to always question yourself, I'd like to say this, but I'm not sure if I'm right. So that tentative tone is very important. Actually, if you read all the geniuses and how they write, it's always like that. Einstein never said A, B, C. He always said, it seems to me that A, B, and C. We should not be better than that. No? We should use the same humble tone. So this intellectual humility applies to everyone, including bishops and the Pope. No? We should always acknowledge that we may be wrong, that we don't know everything. That's important. No? And secondly, we have to be open to correction. No? And I think the community plays an important role there. So whatever your community is, it might be your team of youth ministers, no? But also you have access to theological expertise, you have access to guidance from spiritual directors and all that. And it's really that triangle, no? The mutual interplay among the three that's important. So again, the answer is not neat, it's not self-evident, no? It's a messy process, but that's how life is, no? Life is messy, no? And finding out what the truth is also a messy process, no?
Thank you
And
po.
we should not be afraid of that. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. So just as a kind of summary, no? I talked a little bit about sensus fidei. It's important because it's the basis for synodality. No? Why will I listen to you if you don't have a sensus fidei? No? Why will I listen to you if your sensus fidei is undeveloped? In short, there's a need to develop sensus fidei. No? So the question now is, what is the role of youth ministry in forming sensus fidei, in developing the sensus fidei of the young people? And by youth ministry, I also include formal education, because schools are also a form of youth ministry. No? For example, religious education. Are we actually making it our goal to develop the sensus fidei of our students? No. Going back to that whole approach of just supplying content, are we just supplying the teachings of the church and imposing them on our students? No? Or are we helping them develop their sensus fidei in the classroom? Because they will have no other opportunity to do that. Outside the classroom, outside your formation programs, our young Catholics will have no other opportunity to develop their sensus fidei. They won't do it in their family. They won't do it among their peers. They will not be able to do it on social media. We are the only locus, the only venue for our young people to develop their sensus fidei. So perhaps it's time for us to be more intentional about developing their sensus fidei. Okay, so just being aware of people's sensus fidei with all the constraints that we've mentioned, I think is already a breakthrough. No? Something to think about. No? Okay. So let's engage in some fearless or fearful forecast. Okay? So the first, do you think in the future people will have high or low access to information? High. Okay. Wait. The second one is high or low premium on quality information. Do they value quality information or not? The third is high or low church or school credibility and influence. And the last one is responsible thinking or mob-led or herd-led thinking. You're just following everyone, okay? Your fearless forecast is high access to information. I agree with you. What about high or low premium on quality information? So it's a fearful forecast, probably low. No? I don't think they're going to regulate quality. No? I think we have to learn to live with the internet, with all its very uneven quality of information. What about church and school credibility and influence? High or low? Okay, I'm a little bit of a pessimist, no? So I would say low. No? At least it will not be as high as before. No? And not because it's the church's fault. It's just the way, in general, young people are suspicious of authority today, in general. Do you remember the congressional hearings where the presidents of Ivy League universities were interrogated by senators and congressmen? That's a general trend, I think, that's happening now. What about responsible thinking or mob-led or herd-led thinking? Yeah, again, it's a fearful forecast, okay? So, again, this is at the risk of oversimplifying the future. These are just sort of pegs for us to sort of make sense of what's in store. So when we're beginning to imagine what our youth ministry should look like, no, how an effective ministry should sound like, I think we should keep in mind these scenarios, okay? Okay, so so I just like to us to sort of take a step back and think about the kind of young people that we are ministering to. No, there are several kinds. No, there are young people of all colors, all shapes, and all sizes. No, but I'd like to just propose to you 3 categories, and I want you to think which one would be the dominant characteristic for the people that you are serving. No? So, the first one would be the fundamentalists. They have fundamentalist tendencies. No? So, if you have a low access to information, but high premium in quality, you tend to be fundamentalist. No? You want only one correct answer. No? That would be one type of young people. The other type, of course, is the other extreme, no? Which is relativist. No? High access to information and low premium on quality. Now, the two are very different. No? There are two extremes. I want you to examine your souls. No, not your souls, yourself. No? Not your souls. Okay, that's too much. Okay? I want you to examine yourself. Which one is your tendency? We all have our tendencies. Some of us have more fundamentalist tendencies. Others have more relativist tendencies. Can you talk to your seatmate and choose one? Again, don't say all of the above or none of the above, okay? Do you tend to be more fundamentalist or more relativist? No judgment, no correct. They're both wrong. They're both limited, okay? Have you made your selection? Okay, please do not cast any stone. No judgment here, because both of them are limited, both of them are wrong. Let us now ask the fundamentalists in the room to please rise. Fundamentalists. Who are the fundamentalists in the room? Those who have fundamentalist tendencies, okay? Okay, let's applaud them, Okay. What about those with relativist tendencies? Relativist tendencies, okay? Okay, mas marami ng konti. Okay, let's applaud them, okay? Now, this exercise is meant for you to understand yourself better, no? Both dispositions are inadequate, no? But for example, the fundamentalists, no, would have a high premium on quality, but never mind access to information because there's authority anyway. The Pope will tell me what to do. The Bible will tell me what to do. Or my teacher in my theology class will tell me what to do anyway. Diba? So a fundamentalist, no, tends to have a high premium on quality of information, tends to value high quality, but doesn't care as much about access to information. No? Okay? The relativists, those with relativist tendencies, access to information is important because we want to find out on our own, no? But quality of information may be not so important, no? We're not as open, no, to quality of information. Now, for those of you who picked fundamentalists, that's a very attractive temptation today. No? Why? Because the world is a mess. We don't know what's true. No? So if you have a fundamentalist tendency, you are attached to certainty. You like certainty. No? You want to be sure, you want to be safe. No? But sometimes your being certain and safe is at the expense of the complexity of reality. You tend to simplify reality a bit too much if you're not careful. So I keep code switching, I'm sorry. So for the fundamentalists in the room, that is your danger zone. That is the risk. So be aware what you are attached to. You are biased for clear answers, for certainty, and the risk is that you might oversimplify reality. Okay? What about relativists? What is your bias for? Your bias is for acceptance, for political correctness, You don't want to argue with people. Everyone's correct, no? Everyone's okay, no? For you, the earth is round. For you, the earth is flat. You're both correct. You're both correct, no? Okay? There's a value in political correctness, but what is in danger? Reasoning is in danger. No? Sometimes when you have to reason, you have to make a judgment, and other people are more right than others, and others are more wrong than others. No? Okay, so at least it's good to know that. Of course, the ideal, no, what we want, no, would be the thinking believer. No? We want a believer who thinks, no, who thinks critically. No? There's no black or white answer, but not everyone also is equally correct. No? Okay, so and this is the goal, I think, of our formation programs, no, in our schools and our youth ministry. No? We want people who are open to different views, but they have to make a decision that so far this view is better than the others. You cannot say all are equal, no? Okay? So a fundamentalist will tend to be more intolerant of others. No? I'm the only one correct, or we are the only ones who are correct. No? A relativist will be very open, very tolerant of other people, no? But there are certain costs. Okay? So that's one way of making sense of the young people we're serving. So I want you to just ask yourself, the people you're serving, I would guess between A and C, no? It would be one of them. What would be the majority among the young people? How many people say A? How many people say C? Okay. You'll be surprised, no? Many young people also have fundamentalist tendencies. No? So your strategy will also be similar to your strategy for yourself. If most of your people, most of the young people you're serving are relativists, what do they value? Political correctness, harmony. So remember that. Don't make them fight or argue, they never will. No? But let them realize the value of reason. No? That they have to commit to a particular view, because otherwise they're not thinking. If most of them are fundamentalists, their attachment is certainty. No? But remind them of the danger also of oversimplifying reality. Okay? It looks good on paper, but in reality, it's not really effective. Okay? Here's another one. What if we look at institutional credibility and impact versus the way of thinking, responsible or mob or herd-led thinking? No? If we go for A, no? So we just follow the mob or the herd, but we trust the institution, the young people would tend to be blind believers. They would tend to be blind believers. They just follow whatever the Pope says, no? Because that's what everyone believes anyway. No? Well, because they trust the institution of the church. Okay? If they're mob or herd-led thinking, but they don't believe in the church, they tend to be secular non-believers. Okay? If they engage in responsible thinking, but they have low trust in the church, they tend to be spiritual seekers. No? And finally, if they have high institutional credibility and impact and they're responsible thinkers, that would be the thinking believer. Okay, talk to your seatmate. Which one would be most of your young people? Okay, A, B, C, or D? Again, D is the ideal, no? But many of them are probably A, B, or C. Okay? So talk to your seatmates and choose one letter. Okay, how many people? A, B, C. Okay, maraming C, no? Okay. Okay, so here's a question for you. what do you tend to serve the young people you minister to? I'm not talking about the socials, no? I'm talking about the formation program. Are you serving them Kool-Aid? What is Kool-Aid? Do you remember the cult where people were asked to drink Kool-Aid to commit suicide? Okay? So that would be the type of beverage you might be serving the young people. The other one is Coke Zero. What do we mean by this? No? If you're serving them Kool-Aid, you're into indoctrination, basically. No? So you are targeting fundamentalists, and you're basically making your people blind believers. No? Coke Zero, on the other hand, is spirituality light. No? In short, you're catering to relativists and spiritual seekers. No? Just look for God in your own way. No need to go to the Eucharist. No need to go to confession. No? Just be psychologically healthy, no? And so on and so forth. Okay. So again, continuum. Where would you be? What is your tendency in your ministry? No? Talk to one another and choose a number. There's no 2.5, so do not choose 2.5. Again, both are not perfect, right? Both are not ideal. Okay, how many people chose one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Mas maraming 3 and 4, no? So it's just good to know that, no? Again, both of them are not adequate. It's not adequate to indoctrinate, no? It's not adequate to just let people do their own search on their own without the church, no? Okay? So there are basically, but before that, let me just ask, which of the two do you think will develop sensus fidei? Neither of the two. Neither of the two. Because here, they are straitjacketed. There, they're left loose, no? They're not guided. So if you want to develop sensus fidei, don't serve any of these drinks. Maybe you should serve them black coffee. No, maybe black coffee. Okay, so there are 3 audiences. There are 3 types of audiences. No? The first will be the fundamentalist, blind believer. The other one will be the relativist, spiritual seeker. And what we want, of course, is the thinking believer who has sensus fidei. No? That's what we want to aim for. No? Every religious education program, every youth ministry program today, because of all the trends we've been talking about, we should intentionally, unapologetically aim to develop and form thinking believers. No? Because fundamentalists will not be able to live in the outside world. Relativists will get lost. No? We are not doing them service if we're not deliberately trying to form them into thinking believers. So which of the 3 types of Catholic youth are you serving? Do you agree that a thinking believer with sensus fidei is our ideal? What do we do to get there? It's a big question. Again, I don't have the answer. What do we do to get there? But I think unless you grapple with this and identify your goal, the youth that you're envisioning, no, the youth who complete your program and what's your vision for that youth, a thinking believer who can discern the faith, we will never get there. No? So here are 3 approaches to Catholic youth ministry. I'm going to use 3 metaphors. No? And again, these are just metaphors to provoke you into your planning and brainstorming. Which of the 3 will lead to the formation of a thinking believer with sensus fidei? The first is a laboratory. Think of your work as a laboratory. The second is a garden, and the third is a greenhouse. Okay? Again, there's no correct answer here. No? I want you to think about it. Let me go through each one of them. Okay? The first one, a laboratory. No? You know what a laboratory is, right? When was the last time you doctored the results of your science experiment? Okay, in grade school. So conditions are controlled. To the extent possible, the youth are shielded from the world. Truth and orthodoxy are granted the highest value. The approach is more transmission of the faith. That would be a laboratory approach, okay? Let's go to the next one. The garden. This is the extreme opposite, no? Conditions are least controlled, no? The youth are exposed to the world. Somehow your programs will allow you to expose them to the world, no? To all its elements, including the negative ones. Note there is a worm on the lower right-hand side, no? So they're exposed to the elements, no? The approach is more, they're learning by doing with guidance from you. The garden approach, okay? The third one is somewhere in the middle, the greenhouse, no? Control is calibrated between the laboratory and the garden. There is still a degree of protection provided to the extent possible, but less than the one in the laboratory. There is greater structure and scaffolding than the garden, okay? So these are not comprehensive descriptions, they're just meant for you to imagine, no, what the three approaches would be like, no? So this is a question you will answer later, not now. My question is, which of the following, in your opinion, should Catholic youth ministry look like in the future? Your Catholic youth ministry. A laboratory approach, a garden approach, or a greenhouse approach, no? So, go crazy with the metaphors, no? Don't limit yourself to the descriptions I came up with. We all know what a laboratory is. We all know what a garden is with the worms and all the other elements, no? We all know what a greenhouse is. Imagine what a garden, greenhouse laboratory will look like in terms of your youth ministry, and decide which one you think is the most effective way. Now, there's a temptation to say that the greenhouse is in the middle, so that's not necessarily true. It depends on your audience. It depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on the age level of the young people you're serving. It depends on your context. Okay, so please use this to concretize, no, and imagine what your youth ministry should look like. Okay? Any question about this? So I'm just giving you pegs for you. No, I'm giving you a language you can use as you're trying to strategize and plan your youth ministry. Any question? So far, on the one hand, we have three kinds of audiences, three kinds of young people, no? The fundamentalists, blind believers, the relativists, spiritual seekers, and the thinking believers with sensus fidei, the kind of people you're ministering to. On the other hand, we have the approach, the laboratory approach, the garden approach, and the greenhouse approach. Use these metaphors, use this language as you're planning, okay? Now, so we now come to the most important part of the morning, which is for you to begin to imagine what baby steps can you take for your youth ministry. Now, we are not going to design a program in all its details. We don't have time for that. But we just want to think and brainstorm initial, small, doable action for your team, for your school or parish or whatever organization you might have. No? And you can run with it later on. But we just want to brainstorm and share whatever ideas we come up with. No? So, I will scaffold it this way. What are the first steps for strategizing and planning? No? So pick one or two big ideas from the talk today and also from the conference. No? What would be one or two big ideas or principles, no, or guiding or questions that can guide you? No? And do a brainstorm on how these concepts or principles can be used to improve or innovate your approach to youth ministry for the youth that you are serving, okay? And then make sure to do the following. So there'll be a table, no? Describe the audience and context. What kind of youth are you ministering to? Fundamentalist, blind believer, relativist, spiritual seeker, etc. No? What big ideas are you going to apply? What are the two concepts, one or two concepts or principles that may help? No? Third, what are your reasons, no, for choosing those ideas? Why are those ideas important? as you're brainstorming, no? What is the desired impact? Why these big ideas? What do you hope to achieve? For example, I want sensus fidei, for example, no? Okay? So there are many possibilities. The idea here is to generate ideas, no? And afterwards, no, I want you to think about practices, projects, programs, and policies, no? You will choose where you want to focus on, no? Practices are the easiest on the surface, no? So practices are a way of proceeding, how we work and deal with each other, how you treat the young people, no? How you deal with them during your formation programs, and how you relate to them. Projects are individual activities or events, no? Programs are a set of activities and events with a common goal. Policies are the most basic, your basic approach, your directions, your values, your beliefs about the young people, and your beliefs about your ministry. You don't have to do everything, just choose one level. Maybe for some of you, you want to focus on practices, no? Maybe others want to focus on one program. Others may want to focus on the most basic. Let's talk about our approaches, our attitudes towards the young people, no? So it's up to you. It's up to you. And there'll be this table, no? I want you to just find out which column you want to fill out, no? So for example, depending on whether it's practices, projects, programs, policies, what are you going to stop? What are you going to continue? What are you going to start, and why? Again, you're not supposed to fill out every single square. If you're OCD, you want to fill it out, please do it tonight. Don't do it now, okay? Just choose one or two boxes at the most, okay? For example, I might say, I want to focus on stopping something we do, stopping one project, no? So I'll write it down there. Why? And I want to start a new project. Why? Okay, so just that, no? Are the instructions clear? Okay, so this is the form. If you want, the QR code is there. You can refer to the QR code, no? If it doesn't work, just take a screenshot of this, no? You're not going to submit this anyway, the way it is, but this is just a guide for you, for your group work, no? So we will now break up into groups. I want you to work with your schools or with your teams, whatever configuration you came up with, no? It's now 10:16. We will come back at 10:40. That's okay? Around 10:40, no? Sorry, 11:40, yes. It's now 11:15, so 11:40, we'll come back here, no? You can stay here and work here, actually. It might be easier, no? But basically, what we want you to do afterwards is, I will ask you to post it on Padlet later on when you come back, no? So let's work on this first. Are the instructions clear? Are the instructions clear? Are you going to fill out all the boxes? How many boxes will you fill out? One or two? One or two, okay? Okay, good. All the three above, but one or two down here. Okay, so please, let's get to work now. Let's begin to brainstorm. You may want to stand up and group and sit somewhere else, no? There's a couch here if you want to use it, because we're not using it. For those of you who need a little attention, you're free to sit here, no?